1, 2. All
Oh,
right.
did I beat you?
There we go. You beat me by a second. Okay, everybody. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam, fourth canto, chapter 11. Swayambhuva Manu advises Druva Maharaj to stop fighting, and then Druva goes back home, back to Godhead. So these are wonderful chapters, and we'll conclude the story on Druva Maharaj, which is one of the most auspicious um, stories in the entire Vedic literatures. It's recommended to read after the Ekadasis on special days, in the mornings, at night, all of this, because anyone who actually hears the story of Dhruva Maharaj develops love of God and goes back home, back to Godhead. They actually develop the qualities of Dhruva Maharaj. So we should meditate on these great personalities like Dhruva Maharaj, and this is a great opportunity tonight to do that. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devim Gaurivani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachari Shatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shirvati Giridhar Shivasdi Gaura Bhaktivrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right. So I'll start, and then everybody else can kind of pitch in when they feel like it. We've got 2 chapters, so quite a bit of reading here, and then we'll have some commentary at the end. Chapter 11, Swayambhuva Manu advises Dhruva Maharaj to stop fighting. Text 1. Sri Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, when Dhruva Maharaj heard the encouraging words of the great sages, he performed the achmana by touching water, and then took up his arrow made by Lord Narayana and fixed it upon his bow." Now, I should stop for a second and just catch you up so you'll know where we are. In the last chapter, Dhruva, his brother Uttama, had gone out to the forest to hunt. He was an unmarried younger brother, and he went to the forest and he was killed by the yakshas. And so the mother was concerned to find Saruchi. So she went to the forest to find him, and she burned up in a forest fire. So when this information got back to Dhruva, of course, he was very angry with the yakshas, and he left immediately, forthwith, really, to go there and kill them in retaliation for what they had done to his brother and his, I guess, mother there. So they went back and forth in this big battle. And the battle was going back and forth. And at some points, it looked like Druva was going to lose. It said that he was like a mountain that was covered in rain, but these were arrows and lances and bow. I mean, no telling what they're throwing at him. And somehow or another, Druva was very, very powerful Kshatriya and was able to come out of all of this. It said his chariot emerged like the sun emerges out of a mist. So here comes Druva out, and then, of course, this was after the demigods were chanting, "Oh no, we've lost Druva." They thought he was gone, but he emerged. So this is part of the drama. You can try to imagine this drama that's going on here. This is a real battle that took place in history. And then what happened is he took revised, or he became revitalized and started shooting them incessantly with his bow and arrows, which cut them to pieces. And so much so that they fled the battlefield. It says like a herd of elephants will flee after being defeated by a lion, which is very rare, by the way. So the lion is defeating the elephants. They're leaving, and all of them left. And he was standing alone on the battlefield, and he was thinking about going into the village to see the village. And about that time, he was attacked by all these mystic tricks. Okay, like herds of elephants or whatever. I can't remember all the different things that happened to him, but it was terrible. These visions that he was having, and he was actually overwhelmed. He was actually overwhelmed by it. And so the Siddhas were worried about this. And so this is where the end of the last chapter ends, or rather where the new chapter, chapter 11, begins. And we just read the first verse where he took up his Narayanastra, arrow. And so in the second text, it says, as soon as Druva Maharaj joined the Narayanastra arrow to his bow, the illusion created by the yakshas was immediately vanquished. Just as all material pains and pleasures are vanquished when one becomes fully cognizant of the self. Even as Druva Maharaj fixed the weapon made by Narayana Rishi onto his bow, arrows with golden shafts and feathers like the wings of a swan flew out from it. They entered the enemy soldiers with a great hissing sound, just as peacocks enter a forest with tumultuous crowing. The sharp arrows dismayed the enemy soldiers, who became almost unconscious. But various yakshas on the battlefield, in a rage against Druva Maharaj, somehow or other collected their weapons and attacked. Just as serpents agitated by Garuda rushed towards Garuda with upraised hoods, all the yakshas' soldiers prepared to overcome Druva Maharaj with their upraised weapons. When Druva Maharaj saw that the yakshas coming forward, he immediately took his arrows and cut the enemies to pieces. Separating their arms, legs, heads, and bellies from their bodies, he delivered the yakshas to the planetary system, which is situated above the sun globe and which is attainable only by first-class brahmacharis who have never discharged their semen. So this would be Naistika brahmacharis. They actually went to the same place as these holy brahmacharis. So it was a great boon. Obviously, great boon. So when Swayam Bhavamanu saw that his grandson Druva Maharaj was killing so many of the yakshas who were not actually offenders, out of his great compassion, he approached Druva with great sages to give him good instruction. Lord Manu said, my dear son, please stop. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is the path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit by killing yakshas who are not actually offenders. So if you want to know where we are, we're text 7, chapter 11, Canto 4, just in case you've just joined us. So my dear son, yeah, it's Canto 4, chapter 11, text 8. My dear son, the killing of the sinless yakshas which you have undertaken is not at all approved by the authorities, and it does not befit our family, which is supposed to know the laws of religion and irreligion. My dear son, it has been proved that you are very much affectionate towards your brother and are greatly aggrieved at his being killed by the yakshas. But just consider, for one yaksha's offense, you have killed many others who are innocent. One should not accept the body as the self, and thus, like the animals, kill the bodies of others. This is especially forbidden by saintly persons who follow the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is very difficult to achieve the spiritual abode of Hari in the Vaikuntha planets, but you are so fortunate that you are already destined to go to that abode by worshiping him as the supreme abode of all living entities. Because you are a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you, and you are also recognized by all his confidential devotees. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such an abominable task? Basically, you might want to mute, if you guys don't mind muting. Okay. There we go. Okay, go ahead and mute. So one who actually satisfies, the Lord is very satisfied with his devotee when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. One who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during one's lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions. Thus, being freed from all material modes of nature, he achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. So is anybody would like to pick up there and maybe read 10 or so, 10 or 15? Hey,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, nice to see you again. How are you?
Oh, it has been very, very difficult since my wife had some major surgery.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It
We're
has been very
praying.
difficult.
We're praying for her.
I'm sure missed the classes.
Yes, yeah, I understand. Would you like to read it, text 15?
Sure.
All right.
The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements, and thus everything, including the body of a man or a woman, is created of these elements. By the sexual life of men and women, the number of men and women in this material world is further increased. Manu continued, "My dear King Druva, it is simply by the illusory material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature that creation, maintenance, and annihilation takes place. My dear Dhruv, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is the remote cause of the creation of this material cosmic manifestation. When he gives the impetus, many other causes and effects are produced, and thus the whole universe moves, just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable supreme energy, time, causes the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature, and thus varieties of energy become manifest. It appears that he is acting, but he is not the actor. He is killing, but he is not the killer. Thus, it is understood that only by his inconceivable power is everything happening. My dear Dhruv, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very existing, but in the form of time. He is ever existing, but in the form of time. He is the killer of everything. He has no beginning, although he is the beginning of everything. Nor is he ever exhaustible, although everything is exhausted in due course of time. The living entities are created through the agency of the Father and killed through the agency of death, but he is perpetually free of birth and death. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his feature of eternal time, is present in the material world and is neutral towards everyone. No one is his ally and no one is his friend. Within the jurisdiction of the time elements, everyone enjoys or suffers the result of his own karma or fruitive activities. As when the wind blows, small particles of dust fly in the air. According to one's particular karma, one suffers or enjoys material life. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is all-powerful, and he awards the results of one's fruitive activities. Thus, although one living entity's duration of life is very small, whereas that of another is very great, he is always in his transcendental position, and there is no question of lessening or increasing his duration of life. The differentiation among varieties of life and their suffering and enjoyment is explained by some to be the result of karma. Others say it is due to nature, others due to time, others due to faith, and still others say that it's due to desire. The absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to the understanding of imperfect sensory endeavor, nor is he subject to direct experience. He is the master of varieties of energies, like the full material energy, and no one can understand his plans or actions. Therefore, it should be concluded that although he is the original cause of all causes, no one can know him by mental speculation. My dear son, those yakshas who are descendants of Kuber are not actually the killers of your brother. The birth and death of every living entity are caused by the Supreme, who is certainly the cause of all causes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead creates this material world, maintains it, and annihilates it in due course of time. But because he is transcendental to such activities, he is never affected by ego in such action or by the modes of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the super soul of all living entities. He is the controller and maintainer of everyone, though the agencies of external energy. He creates, maintains, and annihilates everyone. My dear boy Dhruv, please surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate goal of the progress of the world. Everyone, including the demigods headed by Lord Brahma, is working under his control. Just as a bull, prompted by a rope in its nose, is controlled by its owner. My dear Dhruv, at the age of only 5 years, you were very grievously affected by the words of your mother's co-wife. And you very boldly gave up the protection of your mother and went to the forest to engage in the yogic process for realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a result of this, you have already achieved the topmost position in all the 3 worlds. My dear Dhruv, please therefore turn your attention to the Supreme Person, who is infallible Brahman. Face the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your original position, and thus by self-realization, you will find this material differentiation to be merely flickering. Thus, regaining your natural position and rendering service unto the Supreme Lord, who is the all-powerful reservoir of all pleasure, and who lives in all living entities as the super soul, you will very soon forget the illusory understanding of I and my. My dear King, just consider what I have said to you, which will act as medicinal treatment upon disease. Control your anger, for the anger is the foremost enemy on the path of spiritual realization. I wish all good fortune for you. Please follow my instructions.
Very good. Thank you. That was
You're
nice.
welcome.
Nice that you're here with us. We really enjoy your
Thanks.
reading. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else want to grab a little bit of this? We've got just a couple of more in this chapter, but we're going to be reading into the next chapter. So if you'll pick it up, maybe Rangavati or Rakesh or Sudevi, anybody who wants to read. Okay.
I can read if you want.
Okay, please, yes, start at 32.
32. A person who desires liberation from this material world should not fall under the control of anger, because that bewildered by anger, one becomes a source of dread for all others. My dear Druva, you thought that the Yakshas killed your brother, and therefore you have killed great numbers of them. But by this action you have agitated the mind of Lord Shiva's brother Kuvera, who is the treasurer of the demigods. Please note that your actions have been very disrespectful to Kuvera and Lord Shiva. For this reason, my son, you should immediately pacify Kuvera with gentle words and prayers, and thus his wrath may not affect our family. Thus, Swambhuva Manu, after giving instruction to Druva Maharaj, his grandson, received respectful obeisances from him. Then Lord Manu and the great sages went back to their respective homes. So, chapter 12, Druva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. The great sage Maitreya said, my dear Vidura, Druva Maharaj, angers subsided and he completely ceased killing Yakshas. When Kuvera, the most blessed master of the treasury, learned this news, he appeared before Druva. While being worshipped by Yakshas, Kinnaras, and Charanas, he spoke to Druva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. The master of the treasury, Kuvera, said, O sinless son of a Kshatriya, I am very glad to know that under the instruction of your grandfather, you have given up your enmity. And although it is very difficult to avoid, I am very pleased with you. Actually, you have not killed the Yakshas, nor have they killed your brother. For the ultimate cause of generation and annihilation is the eternal time feature of the Supreme Lord. Misidentification of oneself and others as I and you on the basis of the bodily concept of life is a product of ignorance. This bodily concept is the cause of repeated birth and death, and it makes us go on continuously in material existence. My dear Druva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the supersoul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one without distinction. Begin therefore to render service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. Engage yourself fully, therefore, in the devotional service of the Lord, for only He can deliver us from this entanglement of materialistic existence. Although the Lord is attached to His material potency, He is aloof from her activities. Everything in this material world is happening by the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My dear Druva Maharaj, son of Maharaj Uttanapad, we have heard that you are constantly engaged in transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known for his lotus navel. You are therefore worthy to take all benedictions from us. Please therefore ask without hesitation whatever benediction you want from me. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, when thus asked to accept a benediction from Kuvera, the Yaksharaj, king of the Yakshas, Druva Maharaj, that most elevated pure devotee, who was an intelligent and thoughtful king, begged that he might have unflinching faith in and remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For thus a person can cross over the ocean of nescience very easily, although it is very difficult for others to cross. The sons of Idavidha, Lord Kavera, was very pleased, and happily he gave Druva Maharaj the benediction he wanted. Therefore he disappeared from Dhruva's presence, and Druva Maharaj returned to his capital city. Shall I continue?
You may want to try to give somebody another chance to read a few. Rakesh, are you there? I see your thing there. Sudevi, you may be there.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I'm traveling and everybody else is speaking,
no
so
problem.
sorry I can't read.
Don't you worry about it. We're going to miss your reading this time, but we'll pick up for you. We'll carry what you lack, preserve what you have. How about that? All right. All right. Maybe you should continue reading if you want to, Raghavati. And then we'll come back to you too, Prabhu.
Can I read?
Oh, you want to read? There you are. Is that Sudevi?
No, Narsimha Leela Chaitanya.
Oh, hey there. There you are. I'm sorry. With the S, I don't know which one it is. That's all I get. Yeah, please read. Yes.
As long as he remained at home, Dhruva Maharaj performed many great ceremonial sacrifices in order to please the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prescribed ceremonial sacrifices are especially meant to please Lord Vishnu, who is the objective of all such sacrifices and who awards the resultant benediction. Dhruva Maharaj rendered devotional service unto the Supreme. reservoir of everything, with unrelenting force. While carrying out his devotional service to the Lord, he could see that everything is situated in him only, and that he is situated in all living entities. The Lord is called Achyuta because he never fails in his prime duty to give protection to his devotees. Dhruva Maharaj was endowed with all godly qualities. He was very respectful to the devotees of the Supreme Lord and very kind to the poor and innocent. And he protected religious principles. With all this qualification, he was considered to be the direct father of all the citizens. Dhruva Maharaj ruled over this planet for 36,000 years. He diminished the reactions of pious activities by enjoyment, and by practicing austerities, he diminished inauspicious reactions. The self controlled great soul, Dhruva Maharaj, thus passed many years favorable executing three kinds of worldly activities, namely religiosity and economic development and satisfaction of all material desires. Thereafter, he handed over the charge of the royal throne to his son. Srila Dhruva Maharaj realized that his cosmic manifestation bewilders living entities like a dream or phantasmagoria, because it is a creation of the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord. Thus, Dhruva Maharaj at the end left his kingdom, which extended all over the earth and was bounded by the great oceans. He considered his body, his wives, his children, his friends, his army, his rich treasury, his very comfortable palaces, and his many enjoyable pleasure grounds to be creations of the illusionary energy. Thus, in due course of time, he retired to the forest in the Himalayas known as Badrikashrama. In the Badrikashrama, Dhruva Maharaj's senses become completely purified because he bathed regularly in the crystal clear purified water. He fixed his sitting position and by yogic practice controlled the breathing process and the air of life. In this way, his senses were completely withdrawn. Then he concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, which is the exact replica of the Lord, and thus, meditating upon him, entered into the complete trance. Because of his transcendental bliss, incessant tears flowed from his eyes. His heart melted, and there was shivering and standing of the hairs all over his body. Thus, transformed in a trance of devotional service, Dhruva Maharaj completely forgot his bodily existence, and thus he immediately became liberated from material bondage. As soon as the symptoms of his liberations were manifest, he saw a very beautiful airplane coming down from the sky, as if the brilliant full moon were coming down, illuminating all the 10 directions. Dhruva Maharaj saw two very beautiful associates of Lord Vishnu in the plane. They had 4 hands and a blackish bodily luster. They were very youthful, and their eyes were just like reddish lotus flower. They held clubs in their hands, and they were dressed in a very attractive garments with helmets, and were decorated with necklaces and bracelets and earrings. Dhruva Maharaj, seeing that these uncommon personalities were direct servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, immediately stood up, but being puzzled in hastiness, he forgot how to receive them in the proper way. Therefore, he simply offered obeisances with folded hands and chanted and glorified the holy names of the Lord. Dhruva Maharaj, always absorbed in thinking of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, his heart was full with Krishna. When the two confidential servants of Supreme Lord, who were named Nanda and Sunanda, approached him, smiling happily, Druva stood with folded hands, bowing humbly. They then addressed him as follows. Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we will say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the creator of the whole universe, who carries in his hand the bow named Saranga, who have been specifically deputed to take you to the spiritual world. To achieve Vishnu Loka is very difficult, but your austerity you have conquered. Even the great rishis and demigods cannot achieve this position. Simply to see the supreme abode, the Vishnu planet, the sun and moon, and all other planets, stars, lunar mansions, the solar systems are circumambulating it. Now, please come. You are welcome to go there. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. That was very nice. Is there anybody else in your family that would like to read?
Can you give me 2 minutes, Prabhuji? I'll call them.
Yeah, that'd be fine. He's got several readers in his group.
That's good. That's very
Yeah.
good.
Prabhuji, no, Prabhuji, you can, someone can read.
Okay. Text 26.
I think he said someone can take over.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Oh, you want someone else to read? Okay, please, Prabhu, would you read again?
Myself?
Yes, please.
Yes, sure. Anyway, this is just pure nectar, love of God. Dear King Dhruv, neither your forefathers nor anyone else before you ever achieved such a transcendental planet. The planet known as Vishnu Loka, where Lord Vishnu personally resides, is the highest of all. It is worshipable by the inhabitants of all other planets within the universe. Please come with us and live there eternally. O immortal one, this unique airplane has been sent by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by selected prayers, and who is the chief of all living entities. You are quite worthy to board such a plane. The great sage Maitreya continued. Maharaj Druva was very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he heard the sweet speeches of the Lord's chief associates in the Vaikuntha planet, he immediately took his sacred bath, dressed himself with suitable ornaments, and performed his daily spiritual duties. Therefore, he offered his respectful obeisances to the great sages present there and accepted their blessings. Wow. Before getting aboard, Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the airplane, circumambulated it, and also offered obeisances to the associates of Vishnu. In the meantime, he became as brilliant and illuminating as the molten gold. He was thus completely prepared to board the transcendental plane. When Dhruva Maharaj was attempting to get on the transcendental plane, he saw death personified approach him. Not caring for death, however, he took advantage of the opportunity to put his feet on the head of death, and thus he got up on the aeroplane, which was as big as a house. At that time, drums and kettle drums resounded from the sky. The chief Gandharvas began to sing, and other demigods showered flowers like torrents of rain upon Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva was seated in the transcendental aeroplane, which was just about to start when he remembered his poor mother, Suniti. He thought to himself, how shall I go alone to the Vaikuntha planet and leave behind my poor mother? The great associates of Vaikuntha Loka, Nand and Sunand, could understand the mind of Dhruva Maharaj, and thus they showed him that his mother Suniti was going forward in another plane. While Dhruva Maharaj was passing through space, he gradually saw all the planets of the solar system, and on the path he saw all the demigods in the airplanes showering flowers upon him like rain. Dhruva Maharaj thus surpassed the 7 planetary systems of the great sages who are known as Saptarishi. Beyond that region, he achieved the transcendental situation of permanent life in the planet where Lord Vishnu lives. The self-effulgent Vaikuntha planets, by whose illumination alone all the illuminating planets within the material world give off reflected light, cannot be reached by those who are not merciful to other living entities. Only persons who constantly engage in welfare activities for other living entities can reach the Vaikuntha planets. Persons who are peaceful, equipoised, cleansed, and purified, and he know the art of pleasing all other living entities, if friendship only with devotees of the Lord, they alone can easily achieve the perfection of going back home, back to Godhead. In this way, the fully Krishna-conscious Dhruva Maharaj, the exalted son of Maharaj Uttanapad, attained the summit of the 3 statuses of planetary system. Saint Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidur, descendant of Kuru, as a herd of bulls circumambulates a central pole on their right side, all the luminaries within universal sky unceasingly circumambulate the abode of Dhruva Maharaj with great force and speed. After observing the glories of Dhruva Maharaj, the great sage Narad, playing his veena, went to the sacrificial area of the Prasitas and very happily chanted the following 3 verses. The great sage Narad said, "Simply by the influence of his spiritual advancement and powerful austerities, Dhruva Maharaj, the son of Suniti, who was devoted to her husband, acquired an exalted position not possible to attain even for the so-called Vedantist or strict followers of the Vedic principles, not to speak of ordinary beings." The great sage Narad continued, "Just see how Dhruva Maharaj, aggrieved at the harsh words of his stepmother, went to the forest at the age of only 5 years and under my direction underwent austerity. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unconquerable, Dhruva Maharaj defeated him with the specific qualifications possessed by the Lord's devotees. Dhruva Maharaj attained an exalted position at the age of only 5 or 6 years, after undergoing austerity for 6 months. Alas, a great Kshatriya cannot achieve such a position, even after undergoing austerities for many, many years." The great sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Dhruv, whatever you have asked from me about the great reputation and character of Dhruva Maharaj, I have explained to you in all great details. Great saintly persons and devotees very much like to hear about Dhruva Maharaj. By hearing the narration of Dhruva Maharaj, one can fulfill desires for wealth, reputation, and increased duration of life. It is so auspicious that one can even go to a heavenly planet or attain Druvalok, which was achieved by Dhruva Maharaj, just by hearing about him. The demigods also pleased because this narration is so glorious and is so powerful that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions. Amazing. Anyone who hears the narration of Dhruva Maharaj and who repeatedly tries with faith and devotion to understand his pure character attains a pure devotional platform and executes pure devotional service. By such activities, one can diminish the 3-fold miserable conditions of material life. Anyone who hears this narration of Dhruva Maharaj acquires exalted qualities like him. For anyone who desires greatness, powers, or influence, here is the process by which to acquire them. And for thought men who want adoration, here is the proper means. The great sage Maitreya recommended one should chant of the character and activities of Dhruva Maharaj both in the morning and in the evening with great attention and care in a society of Brahmanas or other twice-born persons. Persons who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord should recite this narration of Dhruva Maharaj without taking remuneration. Specifically, recitation is recommended on the full moon or dark moon day, on the day after Ekadashi, on the appearance of Shravan star, at the end of a particular tithi, or the occasion of Vyatipat, at the end of the month, or on Sunday. Such recitation should, of course, be performed before a favorable audience. When recitation is performed this way, without professional motive, the reciter and the audience becomes perfect. The narration of Dhruva Maharaj is sublime knowledge for the attainment of immortality. It is nectar personified. Persons unaware of the absolute truth can be led to the path of truth. Those who are out of transcendental kindness take on the responsibility of becoming master protectors of the poor living entities, automatically gain the interest and blessings of the demigods. The transcendental activities of Dhruva Maharaj are very well known all over the world, and they are very pure. In childhood, Dhruva Maharaj rejected all kinds of toys and playthings, left the protection of his mother, and seriously took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. My dear Vidu, I therefore conclude this narration, for I describe to you all its details. Amazing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Druva Maharaj ki jai. Boy, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, it's amazing. It's
I
amazing.
know. I mean, this whole thing has been pretty incredible. I think this is what, 6 chapters now? Is that right, Raghavati? Do we know? Is it 6 total? About Druva's story?
I think so, because we did 2 for each, I think.
That's about right. Yep. Might be 7, but I think it's 6. So yeah, this is so nice to have you here with us. And certainly you must have some commentary or some elucidation you could share.
Oh, sure. Well, first and most important is that I missed these classes.
We missed you.
And, believe me, it is medical care is very difficult in this country. When husband and wife, or just wife or husband are alone, it is impossible to do everything what they tell you to go home and do it. My wife had a total knee replacement. It's very difficult. I mean, I think I must have spent 12 to 14 hours a day just making things happen so that things move on. It's unbelievable. It's just unacceptable. I think if I ever need such medical care, I'll go to India.
Yeah, sounds better to me. That's where most of the devotees go.
I'll go there.
Go to India.
But I'm so very excited. I'm so very excited. As I told you, I'm writing my book. And I wrote about 550 pages. Then I redid the entire 550. About 45 pages are left now. And I'm very, very excited.
Good.
Now I need to find somebody, my sister, or someone to type that for me.
Well, good luck with that. That's hard to do. And we're writing books, and Raghavati can tell you she's like, she needs to have 8 arms to go on because her guru's writing and this person's writing, I'm writing.
I know. And no, I'll find somebody. I know Lord Krishna will do everything right.
Oh yeah, no question.
He makes this happen. I mean, just like reading Dhruva Maharaj, I mean, it's amazing that it gives the listener or the devotee all the benefits and all the benedictions. But one can understand most people just don't hold the Srimad Bhagavatam. If they are fortunate enough to hold it, then the benedictions are true. But unfortunately, the benedictions don't apply to those who don't study this great literature, who don't hear it from the authorized script people. I mean, It's everything, every word is 100% true.
Krishna says in
Retroactive.
Bhagavad Gita, just about your point there, he says that
Yeah.
that one who's not faithful on the path to devotion cannot attain him. They cannot attain this
Cannot.
spiritual life. So we have to
Yes.
remain faithful.
Yes, yes, yes. So Prabhu, when I get the whole thing typed, and I would need an English professor. I think I may have English professor who's absorbed in Krishna consciousness to go through the grammar, the and, the but, the if, the maybe possible. So I've sent many feelers all over. I've sent feelers in West Virginia, some in California, and of course, I've spoken to Ranga. But I think I should be ready in about a month's time to start that process. I mean, I can't sleep day and night. I mean, I literally don't sleep at night. I go to bed at 1:30 and I'm up. I can't sleep till this project is over.
That's wonderful. That, Prabhupada did that for all those years he was on the road. He slept a couple hours a night. He was so excited he'd get up and start translating immediately. So that's the thing. Once you get filled with that spiritual energy and that Shakti flowing through you, you just get tired. You don't want to eat. You don't want to sleep. Sometimes people say, why do devotees fast? Well, in a perfect world, the devotional fervor of a devotee who's meditating on the Lord doesn't even want to take time for that.
Yeah, he doesn't need anything else. I mean, he's so ecstatic, so transcendental ecstatic that nothing else matters. Nothing else.
It says in Bhagavad Gita that his devotees take great delight in conversing and discussing topics about him. And so that's why we feel such great pleasure when we're in the association of other devotees, because they're interested in these topics as well. So that's
yes. I'm very fortunate to have come in touch with Ranga and of course you and everybody else. I think the first time I met the Hare Krishna devotees were sometime in 1974 or 75. And ever since then, I always wanted to be in this.
Well, that's perfect. That's perfect. And that's about when I ran across the devotees in a major way. I think I was in 72. I was seeing the devotees, but it got pretty serious about 74. I actually moved in the temple, so it got serious then in 75 and onward. But no, that's wonderful. And thank you for your service, and thank you for all your, insight and your commentaries and stuff like that. Please chime in as we're going through. We're going to kind of just go back through these two chapters just real quick and kind of pick out some of the highlights of these chapters. And that way we can kind of go back over the storyline a little bit. If you missed it in the beginning, we were talking about how Dhruva's brother Uttama and his mother Suruchi were killed. Well, she was killed in a forest fire looking for Uttama, who was killed by Yakshas in the Himalayas. So Druva went to take his wrath out on them, and he was killing them wholesale. And they were actually applauding him because he was such a great warrior. They couldn't even believe it. They were like, look at Druva. So, and they were being killed. So they were able to regroup and really come down on Druva in a major way. And it said that it looked like it was rain on a mountain. There were that many weapons coming down on Druva. And we know this same example was in the story of Ramchandra. Yes. In all of the great stories, we see that they're challenged in every possible way, but somehow or another they emerge victorious. So they tried to attack Druva with all these mystical potencies and stuff, and he had the Narayanastra arrow. Now, this is a weapon given to Druva by Narayan. So when he put it on his bow, just the sound of it going onto his bow drove all the demons away. Everything was clear immediately. Everyone was completely afraid of the Narayanastra arrow. So Druva then cut them to pieces, literally. So much so that his grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, right, came and told him, son, you're killing all these people. You've already killed enough. I mean, you're killing people who were not even offensive, right? So you got to slow it down. So he goes into this whole explanation to Druva about what, how if anger controls you, it's actually a gate to hell, right? Yes. Lust, anger, and greed. These three must be given up because they're gates to hell. And you open them, You enter into a hellish condition. So we're seeing that anger is taking these people's lives nowadays because they don't have any self-control. They have no austerity. They have no charity. They do no penance. They don't do anything. They're not religious. They're simply consumers. They're buying what is on the billboard, what is coming on their phone, buy this, do this. And they're just, yes, okay, please. They're just servants of the greater economic machine that is digesting them and enslaving them to a situation that is soulless. It's a machine. It's like a soulless machine. It's for profit. It's for fame. It's for adoration. And it's for distinction. But it is not for Krishna, and it is not for devotional service.
But
right?
there's a difference between a pure devotee and a non-devotee. A pure devotee, by any means, he just cannot get angry. He doesn't know what anger is. He just doesn't have that character in him. He just walks away.
If you look at the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, now for ourselves, we'll never get angry. We'll take anything that's put upon us. But for the sake of Krishna, if someone is blaspheming, or for the sake of the Vaishnava, if they're being blasphemed, it's impossible for us to tolerate. We can't.
Prabhupada said one should not tolerate that. That's true.
That's correct. So, but for ourselves, we'll take anything. It's okay. It's not a problem.
Yes.
We're lower than the straw in the street, more humble than the blade of grass, more
That's
tolerant
right.
than
That's
the street. That's the idea, you know. But very good point. But so Manu comes and he's trying to talk some sense into Druva, right?
Yes.
And so he's explaining. If you go to text 7, let's go back just for a second. I just want to do this with you, if you don't mind. Let's see. I want to go back to the previous chapter, which would be chapter 11. So if you look in chapter 11 and you go to text 7, you'll see that Swayambhuva Manu saw that his grandson Druva Maharaj was killing so many of the yakshas who were not actually offenders. So out of his great compassion, he actually approached Druva and he brought a bunch of sages with him just for extra credibility. To give him good instruction. So he says, son, please stop. Please stop. It's not good to become unnecessarily angry. It's path to hellish life. You're going beyond the limit. These are not offenders. So please, you have to do this because this is not at all approved by authorities. It will not benefit our family, and it's against the laws of religion. And therefore, we don't want to blemish our family, our illustrious family, right? Swayambhuva Manu, come on, you know, Uttanapad. Here you got Druva Maharaj. I mean, this is just a line of just one great soul after the next.
He's the first Manu. He's the first of all the Manus.
Manu was the first Manu. That's correct.
Yes.
He was a child of Brahma.
Yes.
Yes, he's big time. So it says, this is in the very beginning of the universe. These stories are in the very beginning of the universe. How would we know them if they were not passed down and locked in these codes of the Vedic Sanskrit language? In its perfection, these stories have been maintained and are available to us now. So it's amazing that we're able to hear the histories of this world. But anyway, he goes on and he tells him, he said, first of all, you should not accept the body as the self, you know, and like the animals, kill the bodies of others. This is especially forbidden for saintly persons who know the path of devotional service. So he actually straightens him out in those, he straightens him out pretty good. And that's good when your granddad comes and he goes, okay, Dad, we need to have a talk, right? You know it's serious when Grandpa shows up, right? So it goes on and it says that he already said, but you are already, he said, you're already destined to go to the spiritual abode. You're already there. You know, the supreme abode, you're going to go. You're already destined to go there. There's no need for you to be involved in all this like this. And because you're so fortunate and you're a pure devotee of the Lord. So it says the Lord is always thinking of you. And, you know, you're also very recognized by all the devotees as a great confidential servant of the Lord. And your life has been an exemplary experience for everyone. So a Raja Rishi means one who is living in accordance with these Vedic axioms, these truths that are actually Krishna calls the principles or the principles of freedom, right? So these are the regulations of freedom. So there's no freedom unless you have some regulation, right? You become irregular, everything goes chaotic. All of a sudden you're bound up in so many complexities. So if we stay regular and we do our sadhana bhakti through our life, like Druva Maharaj did, he lived in a state of pure devotion. Actually, Krishna came to him, appeared before him, and Druva, instead of asking him for pure devotional service, what did he ask him for? What did he ask the Lord for? He asked him for the highest place, the highest existence in this material sphere, because he had been offended by Suruchi, because she said, you don't deserve to sit on your father's lap. Only my son deserves to sit on your father's lap. Remember that part?
Yes, yes.
See what I'm saying? So he was offended. He was a Kshatriya. He was noble. He couldn't take this offense even as a 5-year-old boy. And Suniti, his mom, instructed him to follow the instructions and go to the forest and become perfected in his meditation. So he meditated on the Arch of Vigraha form of God. He saw God. He looked at God in person. And finally, in his trance of meditation, God appeared directly before him in that self-same view that he had had of the Lord, and he was completely dumbfounded. Of course, if God appears before you, you know, he's all choked up. He doesn't know what to talk. His hair standing on end. He's choked up. You know, finally, he has to ask the Lord, please give me some knowledge and remembrance so I can at least praise you. Krishna takes his conch shell and touches it to his head.
Yeah.
And by doing that, boom, the lights come on and he gives these fabulous prayers. So all of this is in these previous chapters that we've been studying. This is one great study of Druva Maharaj. And it's recommended that we study this regularly because it's so auspicious. You just read just a few minutes ago how all of the boons and benedictions that you could ever imagine, whether they're material or spiritual, will be given. Now, I want to make one point. So Druva made a mistake, and he was very disappointed with himself because he felt like he went for the broken glass instead of the diamond of pure devotional service to the Lord. And even though he was awarded the pole star, right, which is there, which everything circumambulates the pole star in the whole universe, very auspicious situation. And even though that, he felt like he had asked for broken glass. So he felt dejected about that. So later he gets a second chance, right? Okay, he gets a second chance in here in just a few minutes, and then he asked for pure devotion that he would never forget the Lord. Right? Yes, Kuvera for that. So okay. So his qualification is he's a pure devotee. So that was his qualification. And if you get the qualities of Druva Maharaj, you'll go to where Druva Maharaj is. It's that simple. So persons who really want to please the Lord have to exhibit tolerance, mercy, friendship, equality towards all creatures, all living entities, kind friend to all living entities, no matter how high or low they may be. They understand that all this is the Lord's activities. So in Bhagavad Gita, in 435, Krishna says, Yatvana punar moham ivam yashyasi pandabaha. You know this one? Jaina bhutan yasheshani draksha shyatman yato mayi.
Yes.
And he says, and when you have thus learned the truth.
Yes.
So when you have learned the truth, you will know that all living entities
are mine,
part of me, and that they are in me, and that they are mine. So Krishna confirms everything that is being said here by these great souls like Narada, Kuvera, Swayambhava Manu, Brahma. You know, we're hearing these voices of these ancient founders of the universe, and we're seeing what their devotional lives were like, and we should be inspired to follow in their footsteps. So
this verse you just quoted specifically points to non-violence towards other living entities. That's the number 6th commandment of the Bible. Thou shalt not kill.
Right.
Albert Al-Kali, who was the person who translated the ancient Hebrew Latin dictionary into English, he said the exact word is lo tirtzak. Lo tirtzak means no killing of any kind whatsoever. But unfortunately, now they have changed the word to thou shalt not kill any human beings or something like that.
Well, it's convenient,
Yeah, yeah.
So you can make it up. They say if you don't like the way it is, just make something up. And people are doing that all the time. Unfortunately, that's why there's so many thousands of so-called religions.
Yeah.
It says anything in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says anything that's taken its birth, its death is certain. So even man-made religions that come into the world stay for a little while and they fall apart, or philosophies that people hypothecate or, philosophize and they think they've got the answer. And it may be popular for a short period of time and it's forgotten, So the real fame belongs to Krishna. Krishna means the one who's the most famous, the most powerful, wealthy, wise, the one who is actually control, the father of everything. And so therefore, what happens is Swayambhuva Manu says, he says to Druva, he says, my dear Druva, please surrender. Listen to this. If this is not good instruction, I don't know what it is. He says, please surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's a direct instruction. His grandfather came and gave him this instruction. He said he's the ultimate goal of the progress of the world, and everyone, including the demigods headed by Lord Brahma, is working under his control, just as a bull prompted by a rope in its nose is controlled by its owner.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, that's some powerful stuff, guys. So if there's been any question in your mind, now you know. Matak aparam taram nanyat. Krishna says, there is no truth superior to me. There's no truth superior. Everything rests upon me as pearls which are strung on a thread. So Krishna explains that, and then right here, Swayambhuva Manu explains the same thing to Druva Maharaj. He said, everything is working just as a bull is prompt by a rope in his nose.
Yeah.
Just got control of the whole deal, guys. So there you go. And he said, so what he goes on, in these verses, these earlier verses, he has some wonderful instructions. We should read those again. But in 27, he recommends that you surrender fully to the Lord. And in text 30, he recommends that you give up the idea of I and mine. It's not a reality.
It's false ego.
It's false. And we're given these bodies and we think, oh, this is my body. It's not your body. This is Krishna's body. He gives this body. He's the Virata Rupa. The Virata Rupa is all these elements, these 25 elements, that all this stuff is chemically, metamorphosized into for these various species of life to come into. So we are not the owner of the body. We're not the owner of our houses. We're not the owner of our families. We're not the owner of any of these things. And it all changes at the time of death, just like it changes in a dream. When you go to sleep at night, you don't know who you are. You don't know your name. You don't know what town you live in. You don't know what position you occupy in society. You don't even remember your family. You don't remember any of that. So in the partial manifestation, you go into a state like that, like deep sleep. You go into that state. There's a name for that in the Vedas. And then it's recreation. Everybody comes out and does the deal again. But it's all based on, some people say it's fate, some say it's karma, some say it's this, some say it's that. But really it's based on our desire. And our desire is actually, Krishna says, he's this self-fulfilling, he fulfills all desires since time immemorial. Everyone follows his path in all respects, right? So Krishna set this up. He's in it, but he's not of it. It's going on in motion. He doesn't have to be here to worry with it. Krishna has multifarious potencies, and he can do, Angani yashya sakalayandriya briti manti pashanti panti kalyanti chiram jaganti. Krishna can do, impregnate with his eyes. He can do anything he wants to. It doesn't matter. It's all interchangeable for Krishna. So when his grandfather's through talking to him, I really like this part. This is cool. He tells his grandson, he says, "Now, my dear king," calls him, "just consider what I have said to you." Sounds like Krishna in the beginning after he talks to Arjuna.
Arjuna. Yeah,
Now consider what I've told you and just go do as you will.
you're my very dear friend. You decide what you want to do now.
Now you decide what to do. But he goes and he says, "But my instructions will act like medicine for you." They will act like medicine for you. So to control your anger is foremost because it's the enemy on the path of self-realization. You know, there's an old Buddhist axiom, I believe it is. It says that the person who angers you controls you.
Yeah, that's true.
So you've given yourself in literally as that person's slave. They've enslaved you to anger. It's outside of you. It's not necessary for you to feel that way. Whatever they've done is not really being done to you anyway. And so this is being explained to Druva as well, to why he wants to stop killing the yakshas, because really all of this is happening by the supreme will of the Lord anyway. And you just have to accept it as such, and don't take it personally. Pretty much.
Very, very beautiful instruction. Very, very beautiful instruction.
Yeah.
For the
So
devotee.
part of that is to give up the I and mine part of it, because if you're thinking this is mine, if somebody's messing with it, you're ready to fight, even over 1 little square foot of ground. 1 little square foot of ground. You know, I just heard a story today. This neighbor said that they were living out in this beautiful, idyllic paradise in the country. I just was there today, and some neighbors moved in from Connecticut or somewhere, in the big city people. And they moved in, they built right next to their property line, put a bunch of guineas out there.
Oh.
And guineas, you know, they're cute. I think guineas are cute, right? I had a dog, and the dog was chasing the guineas all around, and it became quite chaotic. So the guy next door from Connecticut said, "I'm going to shoot your dog." And he goes, "Whoa, wait a minute. My dog was here all along. And you got some guineas, man. You got to control your guineas."
Yeah.
Right? So ultimately, I guess the dog killed a guinea or two, and the man did shoot the dog. And so all of a sudden now you got these two people who are almost ready to come to blows and die over this situation. And ultimately, the neighbor sold his house and moved away from his paradise because they just couldn't find common ground. They just couldn't work together in a kind, friendly, loving, giving, nurturing, encouraging environment. And instead they were just me, mine, this is mine, these are my guineas, I'll shoot, that's your dog, I'll shoot that, you know, like that. So people can get this way. And I was going to say a minute ago, when we were reading just the last little section, where you were reading so very nicely, it was talking about all these benedictions that you receive for hearing the story of Druva Maharaj. And one should hear it in the morning, one should hear it in the evening. It's very auspicious. One gets the qualities of God. He develops sheer devotion for the Lord. Whatever he wants. If he wants money, you can have it. Druva had the most money of all. If you want power, fame, you can have it. Whatever you want, you can have. Druva got all that, right? He got all of that. And then he realized that wasn't it.
Not a good.
Really, yeah. Then he realized that he had asked for something lesser than the highest benediction, which is God. Don't never forget the Lord. So because he was in a bodily conception of life to a certain degree, he thought, this is my brother, this is my mother, you know, these yakshas have killed him, I got to go kill him.
Yeah.
So he realized, yeah. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Come down to reality. To the extent you create your happiness, to that extent you will receive.
Right.
Sudevi here. I'm in New York.
Are you in New York?
Yeah.
Wow. So she's in Guyana, South America.
Wow.
Ghana. Is it Ghana or Guyana? It's Ghana, right?
Guyana,
Yeah,
small
that's
Guyana.
little,
I'm
small
sorry.
little India.
Yeah, there you go. Small India. So she's moving to New York. And so now you're at least can identify with our nation, right?
Sure.
You don't want to do that either. Remember,
There's a beautiful temple in Brooklyn, New York,
Huh?
on Smearhorn Street. It's a very, very beautiful temple. I used to go there like almost 40 years ago.
Wow.
Very
yeah.
beautiful.
We're just up there. There's no question about it.
Send me the address, please.
Just if you look at Hare Krishna Temple,
Mhm.
Brooklyn, it will come
Mhm.
on the thing. It's on
Okay.
Smearhorn Street.
Okay.
All right. So, and I'm going to finish up this last chapter with you guys, if you don't mind. And I'm going to kind of just run through some of the high points of this chapter, and then we're getting on up in the call. So I want to kind of finish it up. But I really appreciate everybody being here. So the thing is in the next chapter, chapter 12, is where Druva gets it right. Finally, in my mind, he gets it right. So, and the reason he gets it is because Kuvera comes to offer him a boon for being a pure devotee, obviously, and taking the instructions of his grandfather. He's very proud of him. So in text 6, it says, engage yourself. He tells him, engage yourself fully, therefore, in devotional service to the Lord, for only he can deliver us from the entanglement of material existence, right? So he tells him that, and he tells him that because he's the great son of Uttanapad, that he has heard that he's been constantly engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and therefore he is worthy to receive benediction. So he asked him, he says, whatever benediction you want from me, just go ahead and ask. And this is in text 7 in chapter 12. And what does he say? He said, my dear Vidura, when thus asked to accept a benediction from Kuvera, the Yaksharaj, king of the Yakshas, Druva Maharaj, that most elevated pure devotee, who is an intelligent and thoughtful king, begged that he might have unflinching faith in the remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for thus a person can cross over the ocean of nescience very easily, although it is very difficult for others to cross. So he asked Kuvera what he didn't ask Narayan for.
Yeah.
So the devotee of the Lord actually bestowed that benediction on him to be able to have that remembrance of the Lord.
Actually,
so
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shastaka. I think this is there in that Shastaka.
Yeah.
Lord, in whatever life you place me in, whether in heaven or in hell or any life form, let me never forget your holy names.
Shri Shiva Padaratam Panastu Mamma Darsanam Marmatam Pakarotuva Yatatava Viditatu Lampato Mat Prananatas Tu Saeva Napara. Yeah, it says, you're welcome to do whatever you want to me. It doesn't matter. You're free to do anything. You're my worshipful Lord forever.
Yeah.
Whatever you decide, however you want to handle me roughly in your embrace or whatever you want to do, you can do. Because you're always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So that's the mood that Druva's in. If you want to go back home, back to Godhead, that's the number one qualification. And how does that manifest? I'll tell you how it manifests. It manifests in that you have to be constantly engaged not only in the Lord's service, but also into the service of others, for the benediction of others. If you want the demigods to shower their blessings on you, go take care of some people. Become their servant, serve people. And the best service is to disseminate this information, because this is the immortal elixir. This is the immortal nectar that delivers us from this miserable condition of birth, death, old age, and disease. Nobody wants that, but it's imposed upon us by our own desire to lord it over the material world, thinking that we can find enjoyment here, but ultimately find not the water, but the mirage in a mouthful of sand instead of, some delicious quenching thirst, water, to take care of that. So he went on for 36,000 years, right? Druva says he went on in this place where he experienced religiosity. He executed all the principles of religiosity. He did all economic development, and he satisfied everyone's material desires. And he burned up that pious credit of good karma. He burned it up through that enjoyment. So think about that. That's kind of wild when you think about that his life was filled with enjoyment. It wasn't that he didn't enjoy. He's having the biggest time of his life. He had economic development, religiosity, and in the end, what? Moksha. He had liberation at the very end. But because he saw it all as a dream, as a phantasmagoria, he saw it as a dream. He didn't take it seriously. So therefore, he left for the forest of Badarakashram in the Himalayas to meditate on the Lord. And he gave it to his son to manage. And he followed in the footsteps of his great forefathers who renounced everything before their death, left naked for the Himalayan mountains, and sit down and meditate on the Archa Vigraha of the Lord. So by doing that, it says that tears, and this is in, you got to read this with me, y'all. This is the nectar that we're always looking for right here. It says, because of his, text 18, because of his transcendental bliss, incessant tears flowed from his eyes. His heart melted, and there was shivering and standing of the hairs all over his body. Thus transformed in a trance of devotional service, Druva Maharaj completely forgot his bodily existence, and thus he immediately became liberated from material bondage. And as soon as those symptoms became manifest, he saw a beautiful airplane coming for him in the sky. Haribo, Druva! Imagine this, y'all. Now, come on.
So he has experienced three out of 8 of the transcendental aesthetic motions.
Well, I'm sure he had them all. There's no question.
Yeah, he had them all. Yeah.
He said. So he saw a beautiful airplane coming down from the sky, brilliant as the full moon, illuminating all the 10 directions, and these 2 beautiful associates. And what was their name?
Nand and Sunand.
And Sunand. Thank you. And they were representatives of the Lord, and they carried the same club, conch sticks, all that stuff in their hands, and they're very beautiful. And they then told him, because of his austerity and because of his dedication to the Lord was pleased, and they were instructed to pick him up, to come and get him, because he was worthy to not only step on the airplane, but to enter that eternal kingdom for a life of permanence. No more death, no more disease, no more old age. And so he bowed before them, offered his obeisances and so forth, circumambulated the airplane, which is big as a house. We're always hearing about these vimanas that are as big as a house. Does anybody ever hear these things? They talk about it on the news all the time. They're big as a house. So it says, yeah. So it says, so he says, they explained to him that now you please come with us. You are welcome to go there. My brother wrote a song called You Can Go There many years ago, and he's talking about leaving this world behind and going through all this space, and just like what you would see Druva saw. He actually wrote a song like that. And where he got the inspiration for, I have no idea, but it was a very beautiful song, and it sounds just like this to me. But so his tears in his eyes, his heart melted. Nanda and Sunanda came for him, and they told him, you can go there eternally. And because why? Because he was quite worthy. So what happens? He sees death coming for him. And what does he do? He takes the opportunity to put his feet on the head of death and step onto the plane, the airplane, to go back home, back to Godhead. And immediately the demigod starts showering flowers. Wow. And of course, he was worried about his mother, Sunita, and he said, oh, don't worry. She's on the other plane already going ahead of us there. So he was very, very happy. And the last thing I want to leave you with in these verses, because we could go on for a long time about this, and we just have a limited time here, unfortunately. So it says, if you read text 35, it says that he achieved the transcendental situation of permanent life in the planet where Lord Vishnu lives. That's where he went. So, and if you read on, it says that 45, let's go to 45. This is one I want you to hear. So this is how wonderful this is to hear this. It says, by hearing the narration of Druva Maharaj, one can fulfill all desires for wealth, reputation, increased duration of life. This story is so auspicious that one can even go to the heavenly planet or to Druvaloka. You can get to the same destination as Druva just by hearing about him. We need to understand how powerful this oral reception truly is. We hear that the name of God is as potent as God, but we don't somehow or another, we can't understand it. So we just have to give ourselves to this knowledge, to this, because it comes to us through this sampradaya, so we can understand. And it's strong enough, it's so glorious that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions and diminish the threefold miserable conditions of material life. So guys, this is, Rakesh, you got a question? I see his hand is raised. I don't know. I thought he was driving.
I wrote it out. I wrote it out in the text message.
Oh, to Raghavati? Let me read it.
To everyone.
Okay, let's see what it says. Okay. We're not devotees when Vedic knowledge contradicts the current scientific understanding, such as the pole star being the center of the planet's revolutions and life on other planets, etc. Okay, well, that's an excellent point. And, there's a big movement going on right now in Christianity to try to prove their philosophy through archaeology, right? Or through the sciences. And, the thing that I have to say about that, Rakesh, excellent question, by the way. But Prabhupada addresses that in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. And he's very careful to go over these points. And we have to understand these points fully. So the first point is that the senses are imperfect. So if you have an extension of your senses called a telescope or a microscope, is it perfect as well? No, it's an extension of an imperfect sense, okay? And so the problem with that is what we see, what we think we see sometimes is not at all what is the reality of the situation. And that's been proved by science over and over and over and over again. If you look at their theories, the scientific theories, they've all been disproved over and over and over again. And then there's somebody else comes with a new theory and it's shot down, and there's somebody else comes with a new theory and it's shot down. So yes, we do get partial knowledge through imperfect senses, but that knowledge is imperfect. So if we trust imperfect knowledge, then we reach an imperfect destination. Whereas if we trust perfect knowledge that comes through the sampradaya from the mouth of God, the creator of all these things, the one who knows the purpose of all these things, and we're receiving that knowledge through sampradaya, tadvidi prani pratena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshana. When we do that, when we receive that knowledge that comes down to us as a spiritual master, we have a correct understanding. Now, it may not prove out that we see it clearly, just like you might see a mirage in the desert. It looks like water, but when you get there, it might not be. And there may be other dimensions of things that we don't yet see. So another point is we're guaranteed to make mistakes. And we do it all the time. Puffed up people don't like to admit their mistakes. But humble persons on the path of self-realization are happy to be corrected. They submit themselves to correction. So, there's some things that are not necessarily explained or maybe missed in translation, like how many yojanas or how many miles or how many this or whatever. Those things may be up for debate. And that's why Prabhupada had Sataputta, Michael Cremo, and Swarab Damodar and some of the scientists trying to, bring that into a better understanding. But because we're guaranteed to make mistakes, we also have a tendency to cheat. So that tendency to cheat makes us take shortcuts. And the reason for it is we're looking for more profit. So if we can shave here, we can get more profit there. So if we end up getting cheated, basically, by people with imperfect senses, and we're given imperfect knowledge, and we're mistaken, and we're corrected repeatedly. Most of the books that I studied when I was in university in the early 70s, 1969, 70, 71 in school, all of that's been defunct, and new books are there, and they're erasing that information and correcting it as well. So there's a lot of theories. Is the earth flat? Is it a globe? Is it a this? It is. I know that in the first canto, it says that it's egg-shaped. The universe is like an egg. It's like we see an embryo or an egg of a chicken or whatever it might be. So these things are there. I hope that answers your question. I don't know if it did or not. Was there some other point you want to make?
No, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay. So the idea here, guys, is I want to thank you so much, but I want to remind you to chant the glories of the character and the activities of Druva Maharaj, just like you do for the Krishna book and Lord Nrsingadev and, you know, all the other great stories, Lord Ramchandra, all these wonderful Varaha, you know, all these stories are there. But don't forget Druva. And it says that if you do it in the morning and you do it in the evening with great care and attention, then you are benedicted in so many wonderful ways. It says you become perfected by reading, and those who hear become perfected, and it's sublime knowledge for the attainment of immortality. So that's really what we're here for. If you read in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Matra sparsas takotya. Well, he says that one does not take part in the sources of misery, which are contact of the senses with their objects and are temporary in nature. But instead, one goes for that permanent fix, that attainment of immortality. So we do give up a little bit to gain a lot, if you know what I mean. And when we say give up, what do we give up? Really? Nothing. We just offer it to God. We offer our food to God. We offer our occupations to God. We offer our family to God. We offer our children to God. We offer our wealth to God to a certain extent, you know, reasonable extent, so everything can function nicely. And we offer our words and our mission in life to God, and we become perfected because it says here, those who out of transcendental kindness take on the responsibility of becoming master protectors of the poor living entities automatically gain the interest and blessings of all the demigods. So you think about that, and it's not necessary that we have to go do any other thing really, except for be God conscious in all that we do. If we can add Krishna to everything that we're doing, then everything becomes perfected. So guys, I got a lot more I'd love to offer, but I think we've taken it to the limit. And I'd like to tell you how much I really appreciate you for being here. So nice to have you guys with us tonight. You guys are fantastic. And we'll start a new chapter on something. We got to wait and see what Raghavati wants to do.
Okay.
Next, and we got to find out from her. She'll tell us what's going on here shortly, I'm sure.
She's busy thinking in many directions.
Oh, that girl's got more going on, man. I cannot keep track with her. Okay, well, thank you, Prabhus. Thank you so much for everything. Hare Krishna. Have a blessed evening, and we'll see you next Monday, okay?
Ranga, say my Hare Krishna to Prabhu.
Jai, Jai, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai, everybody.